Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about the sequence of events for a flower to become a seed. It's something we don't think about, but it's something that our entire ecosystem depends on. If we don't have fruits, trees aren't going to be able to reproduce, plants aren't going to be able to reproduce, and we're going to have some issues. Sometimes things are fruits and you don't realize they're fruits. Actually, acorns are a fruit. Okay, anyways. Let's go here. Now, the first step is a pollinator is going to transfer pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma. This is called pollination. So there's two types of pollination. There's self-pollination, where the pollen grains of the same flower comes off and it sticks to the stigma of the same flower. So this flower right here, the pollen stigma, self-pollination. It's doing it to itself. Okay. Cross-pollination is when a pollinator, or the wind, usually it's pollinator, takes pollen and the pollen from the stamen sticks to a bee as it visits a flower. That bee flies away, it travels to another plant of the same species, and then the pollen on the bee sticks to a pistil on the other plant. So you take the sperm, pollen is sperm, that's the male part of the flower, and it goes over to another flower, and then the female part of the flower, and there's sexual reproduction. Okay, so after pollination, so you got this diagram right here, pollen ship fertilization. Pollination happens first. Pollination is just pollen sticking to the stigma. That's it. Pollen sticking to the stigma. Fertilization is what happens when the pollen travels down the style, okay, and it fuses with an ovule. The ovule are the eggs of the plant, okay? So pollination is pollen lands on the stigma. The stigma is sticky. Pollen is plant sperm. Fertilization is when that pollen, which is sperm, fertilizes the egg. Pollen fertilizes the egg just like human reproduction. Now, the next thing that happens is the ovary of the flower develops into the fleshy part of the fruit, and then the ovules, which are inside the ovary, those are the eggs. Now they're fertilized. They are going to mature into seeds, and inside the seed is the plant embryo. Okay, baby plant. All right, so this shows the sequence of events of an apple. Okay, and then in this flower diagram that you guys have in your notebook, it shows, okay, the ovary of the flower, and then it shows that same ovary of the flower becomes the fleshy part of the fruit. So if you have an apple and you're like, apples, whenever you take a bite out of an apple or a cucumber or an avocado or a pumpkin, you are eating the ovary of that plant. And if you look at the bottom of an apple, look at my nasty finger, I'm sorry. The bottom of the apple, you can still see the remaining flower parts there. And the same for a pear. Had a student bring in some apples and pears. If you look at the bottom of a pear, you can find the leftover flower parts that still haven't fallen off. All right, so grocery store definition of a fruit does not necessarily match up with a scientific definition of a fruit. So anything that has seeds on the inside that is protected by a fleshy fruit is a fruit. So watermelon, pumpkin, zucchini, avocado, tomato, these are all fruits. A lot of things that you think of vegetables are usually like leaves, lettuce leaves, celery stems, the roots of carrots, okay? If you have any questions, you can always send me an email. This will be an essay question on an exam, okay? So make sure that you understand it, and you can go back to parts of a flower diagram, and it has these steps, the sequence of events. Sequence what means, like, how does it happen in order? And it has to happen in order for this to work. All right.